Let me promote you to presenter again. Can you see my screen?
I do.
Okay. And then I'm not sure how we got into it last time, though. Viztek?
I'll get you there.
Okay. Oh, do you want to go into IE instead of Google? Did we find that that was better last time?
No, it didn't do any different.
Oh, it wasn't any different? Okay.
I can't seem to close that, though.
Oh, here, hold on. Mark, do you need me to do something?
Well, Becky, I can't seem to close that window to be able to get to the RIS icon. I don't seem to have control.
Here again. Well, it says I promoted you, so let's see.
Did we figure out how to give remote control on this now?
Well, I think he was going to go in the same way he did last time, Ryan.
I'm sorry?
I said I think he was going to go in the same way he did last time.
Oh, that was
You want me to team viewer in?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, because that seemed to give you the controls last time.
Let's see. What's your team viewer number?
I don't know, Ryan?
Just hit start and type in, or click on TeamViewer, yeah.
There you go. You want me to read it to you, Mark, or can you see it?
What is that, 725?
892-755.
We got to play with that after we get done with this call, Becky. Figure that out. AnyMeeting.
All right. What happened to my RIS icon?
Around here. That.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you have a group of people or some people that are going to call these patients and schedule them from a pre-order screen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And how many of those people do we have?
Depends on who you ask. I would say that we probably have about, I don't know, maybe, I think we have 10, but I'm not sure.
And do we have 4 different locations, 4 different offices that we're going to train at?
We do. Well, I don't know necessarily that depending on when we get closer where we need to, I don't know that we necessarily need to train at 4 offices, but there are definitely 4 locations that we do some type of exam, and there's 4 locations where people will be scheduling. Although they schedule for all of our locations, not just the location that they're at.
Two of the locations only have 2 people each.
All right.
Maximum.
So the first few steps that I'm going to show you is I'm going to go into the pre-order screen as if we have gotten a feed from Centricity, and that the demographics are there, and the patient's basically got a pre-order, however that feed's going to happen. Stuff with that. Thank you. So I'm going to go to the pre-order screen, and I'm going to show you what the scheduling people will see and how they will call those people and get them into the schedule book, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, so on the left-hand side where it says pre-orders, or under the schedule where it says pre-orders, these match, by the way, top and side. That was a single left click to get my pre-order screen to come up, and you can see my pre-orders are setting here, and I just put a few patients in, and I had to go in and put in some duration times in order for us to schedule these certain exams, and we only have a few that are in there. Ankle and abdomen, I know those are in there. So from this screen, they would see the patient's phone number, call Mr. Bunny, and on a right click, I could go in and either edit the pre-order, I can cancel the pre-order, I can view any documents that have been scanned. As I say that, are we assuming that most of the documents will be scanned into the EMR at Centricity, except for the ones the radiologists need to view? And then we'll scan those to PACS? Is that correct?
I think
That
that's
the
still
actual order themselves will be scanned?
Where the physician, where the radiologist can see it as well.
I think he's talking about like and things like that, Rachel. So like the patient
question
out of Avrio right now, and then have the patient sign.
Right, but I guess, Mandy, do the radiologists actually look at the physical order? Do they need to see the physical order, or is it just scanned in for auditing purposes?
They look at the order.
They do? So yes, so it has to be where the radiologist can see it.
Okay.
Real quick, when you say scan into PACS, I think we talked about this last week where it was actually an image via pull-down. Is it just in there with all the rest of the images? There's no like saying you want to view scanned images. It's just an image, just like a chest X-ray would be.
Yeah, in our PACS, so if you do a 3-view ankle, you're going to have the 3 views as a small thumbnail on the left hand or top of the images, depends on how the radiologist wants it. And they just roll the wheel so they can go through them. At the end of the thumbnails are the scanned documents. And as they roll the wheel, then it would just go into the scanned document, or they could drag it in at any time. I want to let you know that
need to contact the radiologist, because there's going to be some stuff that they're going to maybe want to have access to, but not going to want to be having it there all the time. You know what I mean?
Right, and I don't know if they'll scan at registration for Centricity, if they will scan the driver's license and insurance and those kind of things, or if you want to actually scan those into our RIS. Now, I will tell you, if you scanned our RIS, and if I would click View Documents, and I'll just go ahead and do that right now. So right from the pre-order screen, or once they're scheduled, or even once they're completed, I'm not going to do this because we don't have a scanner hooked up to this software yet, into this PC probably. I would click Quick Scan, and upon doing that, I would get a small box, and we would have a list of the types of scanned documents, and we can build those while I'm on site or in advance. And they would say CT Tech Worksheet or MRI Questionnaire or, X-ray history or whatever you want it to say, and we could scan all those documents, driver's license, insurance, everything. And when you name it, right in this box right here, it comes up and says insurance card, driver's license, CT worksheet. And that folder is available to the radiologist as well. And that's in a small folder that has the letter D for documents, and it sits in packs. So, Ryan, instead of in a thumbnail, if you will, sitting there like with the 3-view ankle images, there's a D folder, and they would click on it, and they see this exact same window. So our RIS and PACS talks for radiology reports and for viewing and scanning of documents.
Okay. I would assume most documents would get scanned into the RIS unless they were specifically clinical in nature.
Okay. And we can split it up.
Does that sound right to everyone else? I mean,
yeah, I don't think we really want to scan these documents multiple times, do we?
No. It's just two different places to scan them. It's not that they would. What I'm saying is, clinical documents would get scanned in to the PAC side if they're specific to the exam being performed, specifically stuff that the radiologist has to see.
Right. I don't think they need to see the driver's license and stuff, do they? I mean, again, wouldn't that mean...
That wouldn't be scanned in there anyway. As far as this goes, I mean, we know that we can scan it into either one. So I say we table it because that's an internal discussion, and so let's not waste Mark's time with showing us the rest of what we need to look at. And we'll just make a list of all the things that we need to talk about internally and figure out where they're going to go.
So I would say we would scan into both is the answer to you there, Mark.
No, and I think that's a good way to finish it. I'll finish it this way. If you scan to this RIS, even a CT worksheet, you're scanning and holding a full electronic medical record. The radiologist then has to select which one he wants or she wants to look at. If you scan just the electronic records to here, like driver's license and those things, you've got an electronic record of those. Scanning to the PACS is kind of like spoiling the radiologist, if you will, and makes it more convenient for them to see a document without them having to go to a D folder. So that's the difference, and at least you know you can scan both places, and I think it's just a matter of us working on workflow in the future. Okay? Mm-hmm. From here, I could also come in and go to... Go ahead. I'm sorry?
Oh, I just said sounds good.
Okay. Also, on a right click, I can come in at any time, go to the patient's chart in case I have them on the phone and they say their address has changed, we don't have their date of birth correct. Any of that data that I want to change, I can change on the fly while I'm on the phone with the patient before I schedule. On a right click again, I can come down and now schedule the patient. Now, I set the exam at 15 minutes, that 3-view ankle. I believe that's the one that I did. And you can see that my modality is CR and my office is Fort Myers. I want you to know, because this got brought up immediately last time, how do we switch this if we're going to send them to a different office? And development is in the process already of writing code for us. We had this happen at another facility in Massachusetts just a couple of months ago. So on a right click, and it's not here today, but on a right click right here will be offices, and when I hover on it, I can slide over and pick any one of the 4 offices that I want to schedule at. So that will be new in the software, and I don't know exactly when they're going to have that done, but they're very aware of it, and they know they need to write the code for that.
So what happens
also,
hey, Mark, just a quick question. So since they're trying to get this rolled out and we don't have an expected date for that, what would be the workaround right now for us to make sure that these patients get scheduled at the right office? Because if that order comes in because we put it in while the patient was being seen at like our Cape office, but only our Fort Myers office does that particular test, how are we going to get them on the correct schedule?
let me go back to the home screen.
So
and on the drop down here, excuse me?
So that location drives where you want to schedule them?
Well, this is the home screen of that, and now I'm going to go back to my pre-order list.
Are the pre-orders tied to a location?
Actually, I don't think we want them to be.
I agree.
They would be as of right now, but as we did our attempt at training last week, I could hear what you all were telling me already about multiple locations, and I knew that the RIS was not, it's normally set up for one facility and then it has to be rebuilt for multiples. And I could tell immediately that that was not complete. So I began to report to John Bridwell in development what changes would have to be made before we could actually, do even a final demo, if you will, and then start our training. Because I know at that point, and I'm just going to see since I switched locations, I don't know that it's going to do it. See, it did not change from the Fort Myers office, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm just checking a couple of things here.
Currently on the contact name.
I think the answer that we have, I see that they've constructed them in here, but I don't think that in the database they are ready for us to be able to select from one office to the next.
If you log out
on the log.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd have to log into one, and my fear is that if we log into a different one, we're going to be locked into that facility, just like we were at the Fort Myers office on that one. And they're aware of it. I guess my best bet after we get off the phone today maybe is that we kind of come up with some sort of an email to maybe send to John, since he's the PM, and let him push it to development so we can start to get some timelines as to when these things might be completed. Because I don't really have those answers. I don't know about HL7, and you see what I'm doing? I'm just going back. Now, I logged into the other facility, and you see it still defaulted me to Fort Myers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking I think that's probably the only one that's built in the database.
Well, actually, it did say, next to the pre-order, it did say Fort Myers for FMO on the pre-order screen.
Yeah, but I had logged into one of the other facilities, right? I had logged into...
Yeah, Bonita.
You go to pre-orders, though?
Yeah.
All of your pre-orders are tied to Fort Myers.
Right,
Okay,
'cause
so that's the only thing, again, that we can work on. But when you go to schedule this and that schedule comes up, so when that screen comes up, will that list every available time for the scheduler to be able to schedule? So if a patient was already scheduled in one of those other times, would it list it as an option, or it would take it away from this list?
Well, here's the first thing it's going to do. We need to get together and decide on our CRs and on our CTs and those things, what is going to be our default time frame so that we get the right slots throughout the whole day.
Well, there's not one answer. A CT
you mean as far as
longer than a CT without.
We can also do it. We can also have them set it up in the database that we can do it by duration times. Do you remember me going in and setting the duration times to 15 minutes last week, or did I not?
You said that only worked for manual scheduling. You said that for pre-orders it only went by the one duration.
We're going to have to work with them. I mean, because when we do with and without, you guys probably do those at 20 or 30 minutes, right? And the withouts only, you do at 15.
Right, and then you've got like a CT of the head that might take 15 minutes, but a CT of the entire spine takes 45 minutes. So it's not even just the withs and withouts.
And do you have those duration times that you've turned into John from your other system that are already in place?
No, we have not completed the build-out of the compendium yet.
Okay. Well, John can do an electronic upload, and what we'll do is work with development that we can do it either by CPT code or we can do it by modality. And what I'm hearing you say, it sounds like we need to do it by CPT code.
That is correct.
We only have one modality that only has one time frame.
What's that?
We only have one modality that only has one time frame associated with it.
So once the compendium is done, John can load it by duration times per CPT code. And to answer your question, what they'll do is if the time slot is already taken by another patient, say this 10:20 time slot, it will not be available. It just won't show in this list to be able to put a dot in it and select it.
I just want to make sure, so someone's going to do some customization to make the duration attached to the CPT code override the duration that automatically defaults in here, because last week that's not what you said.
Yeah, because I thought we would do it maybe by modality, but after I thought about it through the weekend and with your CT and your MRs in place and obviously other modalities that you switch time frames on, I realized we're probably going to have to do it by CPT code. So they're going to have to make sure that we have available time slots, based on the CPT code that we would pick. So what they'll do is, well, I'm not sure exactly what development will do. They'll let us know how they're going to design it so that it works the way that we need it to and get the right time slots that we need. So let's say that we want the 10:20. And it's just asking me if I'm sure I want to fix this appointment. It left my pre-order screen. And that was scheduled for the 7th. So I'm just going to come back to my home screen out of my pre-orders and confirm that it got into my home screen. And so now this patient is scheduled for a 10:20 time slot on the 7th for an x-ray of the ankle left. So I'm not sure of the next step because I don't know exactly how they're setting up the HL7. As you can see, this patient has come into our schedule book as scheduled. We do have a couple sites where they come in a different status. And I guess I need to ask, are you going to do modality work list out of our server?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the trigger for modality work list. So once they're scheduled, right, they're probably sitting in our lobby, signing the HIPAA, doing whatever, and I don't know the whole workflow. But if it doesn't come from the pre-order any other way than scheduled, then it would take somebody to right-click and slide over and click check-in. And this check-in box just gives us a chance to check all the demographics again, make sure we got the right procedure, make sure that if there's insurance there and we want to check it, diagnosis codes, if we add those, and I don't know that you're going to do that in this system or not. In other words, if everything's correct, we just check them in. And we can set up these colors for scheduled and checked in and checked out, any color fashion that you want. We can design that when I get on site or before I get there. And you can see now that it says checked in. That's the trigger right there that modality work list now sends the demographics to that X-ray machine. So that trigger has to happen somehow at some point, whether it be automatic from Centricity or automatic from pre-order, or somebody actually physically doing it after we have greeted the patient and scanned the documents.
They have to be checked in order for it to show up on the modality work list.
That is the trigger. Check in.
Okay. Right now we use patient arrived when a patient gets there. It doesn't have any effect on the modality work list, but that's what we stick them in a status of.
All right, let me show you this real quick. I'm going to go back to my pre-order list because I was kind of prepared for that. So I've called Mr. Test by looking at this phone number, and I reminded him about the CT of the abdomen that his doctor has put a request in for. I asked him what day he wants to come. He says he can come on the 7th. You can see my time slots available. I tell him that we've got a noon, and he says, okay, I'll take that. He's left my pre-order screen. An hour later, he shows up at my window, and he's scheduled. And again, we can make these statuses any color that you want. When I greet him, I can come and right-click and view documents and make sure that everything that we need is there, either from Centricity. And again, I don't think any of us know the true workflow yet, and whether they're going to be scanned at Centricity or on our side. But either way, you could view the documents. You could go to the patient's chart and edit any demographics if he says he's got a new cell phone number or something. In other words, I can come and hover on change of status. And at that point, and Ryan, were you talking about the arrive?
Yeah.
So I could right-click and arrive them, or maybe, Ryan, through the HL7 messages, when they come out of pre-orders, maybe instead of leaving pre-orders and coming to the home screen, instead of bringing them across scheduled, we bring them across arrived and skip one step.
Well, they're not coming in across HL7 scheduled. They're coming in unscheduled into pre-orders. So that's the end of the HL7 stream, that everything's dumping into pre-orders, so there won't be a date and time associated with them. So
okay.
It would have to be on this end.
All right, so when we assign the CPT code out of the pre-order screen, they'll come here and they'll be scheduled. And then if you want to arrive them, we can arrive them. That lets everybody know they're in the lobby and everything's done. And then at whatever point you want, you can right-click and check them in. I want to show you something about these colors real quick, just so you know that this is customizable.
Okay, so quick question. The patient doesn't really need to be arrived. They can just be checked in?
That's correct. We can skip arrived in our software.
Because they have to be checked in after they're arrived, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Right. It would be 2 steps.
Yeah, so that makes no sense to arrive the patient because checking the patient in has to be the final step, and they basically mean the same thing.
I fully agree with you.
Can we hide statuses? People?
I'm just going to make a couple changes here real quick just so you can kind of see what's happening here. All right, I'm going to go back to my pre-order screen. I've called Mr. Test and asking if I can get him on the schedule. We'll stay on the 7th, just so we don't have to switch screens. He says he wants the 1:30. My pre-orders are gone, so I basically called everybody that was sitting in my pre-order list. And now I've just kind of changed my colors, so I'm kind of running a little bit of a stoplight here, scheduled. We've decided we want to skip arrive to let the technologists know that they're in the lobby and ready for them to take them to the room. I'm going to right-click and go to change status and check in. I don't need to change my demographics. I'm going to check the patient in. It's going to turn yellow, so anybody that could see a computer screen and see the RIS screen would be able to see that they're checked in and ready to go. And this can happen at any time. The RIS features from here on out do not hinder the PACS or the reading of the radiologist report, nothing like that. They're just formalities. And the formality is that somebody would need to come in and right-click, go to change of status, slide over, and text start the study. This is just a confirmation that we've started the exam. And it says checked in study in progress. Now, a lot of my sites are using that. When they leave the lobby, the front desk will start the study, or the technologist is responsible to start the study when they take them into the room if they have a computer. And that way everybody knows they're with the tech. We all know that not every site that I have, every technologist has a computer right by their right hand that makes this convenient. Some techs share one computer that's in the middle of a hallway. So from here, as a tech, and let's say I'm doing the CT, if I was going to scan my documents into RIS, then I could right-click and view documents, and they're going to go in this document folder, just like the driver's license and everything else. If I'm going to scan the PACS, then I have to wait till the exam is done, and I send the CT images, once I'm completed, to the PACS, and then the technologist or front desk or whoever's assigned to it would go to the PACS and right-click and quick scan and scan the CT worksheet and the script, whatever the instructions are. Now, once that's done, the technologist or whoever's assigned to do it, normally it's the techs, right-click and hover on change of status and end the study. And basically what that does, and I just kind of changed my colors so they were a little bit more noticeable, from a green to a yellow to a red, kind of like a stoplight. And now you can see it says checked out unread. That tells everybody the exam is complete. Mm-hmm. When the radiologists begin to read into the system, the PACS system will find the patient by a session number, and we will take the radiology report and move it into the RIS, into the patient's chart, and this will say checked out, approved when that happens. I don't care if it happens within an hour or 6 days later, as long as it finds the accession number. And then from here, Ryan, I believe maybe you can correct me or help me. I believe our RIS is supposed to go find the same accession number in Centricity and send it back to the EMR.
I wasn't sure if that was going to be the RIS or the PACS, but yeah, one of them has to do that.
Well, we're going to dictate into the PACS, so the PACS gets it first. The PACS passes it to our RIS, and our RIS passes it back to the EMR.
Okay, because it also has to pass back a link to the images.
Pass back a link to what?
The images.
In the EMR?
Modality. Yes. That's part of
Okay.
meaningful use now, that we have to have a link in EMR directly to the patient's images.
Okay. That's all part of the HL7, and I've not talked to the HL7 teams on either side, so I really don't know.
I was assuming that would be more of a PACS thing than a RIS thing, so that was kind of...
Well, they kind of all pass through each other because we actually do the dictation inside the PACS.
Okay. Are you able to unarrive that arrived patient there? Is that...
On a change of status, when it's arrived, I can come back and I can take it back to a scheduled patient.
Okay.
I can do anything I want, but once they're checked in or they're checked out, they're locked. So Bugs Bunny, I realized that I'm not going to do a complete ankle on him. I'm actually going to do a foot, and I just read the script. And if we scan the script, let's say at the front desk, into RIS, the technologist at any time can come in and right-click and view documents and look at that and confirm the script before they do the exam, if that's normal workflow. So I realized that Mr. Bunny, I've got the wrong exam in, and all I did to get this window is I double left-clicked on Mr. Bugs Bunny's name. And within that window, you can see I've got the exam that I put in through pre-orders. I've got the referring physician, which should come to me from Centricity. An ICD-9 if I put one in, and I just did that when I did the pre-order this weekend. I could look at insurance, I guess. Maybe you guys can help me with this. Insurance is probably going to be put in on the Centricity side, right?
Correct.
And then passed to us through HL7?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Within the exam tab, I can come and click the pencil. And when I click the pencil, it freed this area up down here, or opened it up. And I'm going to wipe that out. And upon doing that, you can see I've got all my CPT codes. And I only have duration times in on a couple because I had some instructions from the home office to not go in and do too much building in here. So let's just say I didn't want to do the left ankle, I wanted to do the right. And I'm going to save it.
Hey, Mark, so question here, can we, that editing feature that you just went through with the pencil, is that something that we can hide from employees because they're not allowed to change the orders? They would need to request a new one to have from the provider.
Well, I'm certainly glad you brought that up. In certain statuses, we can do it in our RIS without changing the accession number, but for the most part, I think you're exactly right, that we would remove these permissions literally from virtually everyone except admin people, because the key is to really get the new order to make the accession number correct from the EMR.
Right. So the current workflow is that they would turn around and they would remove this order and they would ask for a correct order and then they would schedule the correct order.
Keep in mind, Becky, that somebody coming from the outside would come with a piece of paper and they would put in the order, so that they would have to be able to edit that.
Why would they would just put the order in. They wouldn't need to edit the order. They would just put it in.
Yes.
Does one go with the other, Mark? Because you're in already where a patient is scheduled, but would that permission be different if they're scheduling versus editing? Can we take away the edit but still allow them to choose an order if it were an outside order? Because we do have those outside orders that come in that will not come in on the pre-order. So that scheduler will need to be able to schedule on the fly as patients either walk in or call in with their outside orders.
So would you have those staff members then just checking the study description from here to recognize whether it was wrong or right? And if it was incorrect, then letting the doctor know to send the order?
I don't know. I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's our schedulers who notice that the order is necessarily wrong. I think it's more the techs when they look at their schedule and see.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was talking about. So would your techs be looking at the home screen going, oh gosh, that's not right. It should be left.
Now remind me again, because what we were just talking about so that I can make this connection. You're saying the techs on the PACS side will not be able to see their schedule until that patient has arrived?
Well, forget the PACS side for a minute because the RIS really sets separately from the PACS. So basically, everybody's going to live out of this to start the day with. And so all the techs and all the front desk people will be able to see who's scheduled, who's checked in, and who's checked out.
So our techs are going to log in to both the PACS system and the RIS system?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Becky, when he was talking about what was showing up arrived versus, he was talking about modality work lists, which has nothing to do with PACS. It actually is what shows up on the modality itself when you say, okay, well, the patient's here. Let me go open up, and see what I've got. And it's what the DICOM data goes back to the modality so they can pull up their patient in the actual X-ray machine, let's say.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's what he's referring to when he says modality work lists.
Right, and on the PACS side, nothing happens on the PACS side until the exam is ended and the technologist has sent the images to PACS. At that point, we can take a tech worksheet from any modality and scan that to PACS so that it sets as an image radiologist rather than setting in the view documents in RIS. And just so you know, everything we scan in RIS, even if we do scan the driver's license and the insurance card or just the script maybe because everything else goes in the EMR, this folder, there is a folder that has the letter D on it in PACS. And the radiologist can open that at any time and see any documents, and the technologist. Anybody that logs into PACS can see all the RIS documents. It's just not as a thumbnail like one of the images. It's in a D folder.
So we want to put stuff that the doctor's never going to want to see in here for sure.
Yeah.
Question. The reason I had you put that back at scheduled was this happens all day, every day. That patient doesn't show up. What do we do?
Well, let's go over a couple things. One, I normally teach somebody how to go in and set no-shows in our system. And so what the no-shows do is if I come and set it, it defaults automatically to the day before. And so my teaching is to whoever the admin instructs me is for them to go change their calendar, and I'm not going to do it because we don't have anybody on there, go change their calendar from here to yesterday, and this will be the 7 a.m. employee. Check and make sure that everybody got checked out because they could say, oh, Bugs Bunny was here. I know the tech did that, but her boy had a baseball game, and maybe she just left in a hurry and forgot to start and end the study. Because we certainly don't want to mark those people as no-shows. Everybody else that's still scheduled or maybe even confirmed if you do call the day before, if you call the day before or 2 days before and do any confirming that you need to be here 15 minutes early, do your paperwork, we have that option in there. And I know, Ryan, you're going to ask me again, can I take you back to scheduled? which I can.
No,
So,
I want to take them back to pre-orders.
Should.
That's not going to happen. What I can do is I can reschedule him.
So what happens quite often is this patient didn't show, and we call him and say, hey, you didn't show for your appointment, and we just leave a message and we don't hear back from him. So we got to call him a few times. We're going to have to actually, try to get a hold of this patient.
Gotcha.
I think we're going to look into using Televox or another service for these, as Viztek said that they were able to interface with those types of services. Is that not correct?
Because I don't do any of that HL7 or connectivity stuff, I don't want to speak for them. Let me show you how I would do it if I did not have a third-party service. And if you think it's inconvenient out of my software, then we can look into something else. So, along with my home screen, which is everybody that's scheduled in every modality. So if you do 100 patients a day, your home screen is going to have 100 patients on it after we get them out of the pre-orders list, right? Along with that, we also have a schedule book. And within the schedule book are all your rooms and the hours that are available, supposedly at every facility. Okay? So, let's see, where was that scheduled patient? I don't even remember what room he was in.
Well, you had some CRs and some CTs.
Let's see, he's in the CT room. I need to slide over a little bit. At noon. Okay? He has to be in a scheduled situation, okay? So if you don't want to set him as a no-show, which if you set him as a no-show, let me go back to that so I can finish that for you. If I go in and set that as a no-show and it does all my scheduled patient as no-shows, anybody that's canceled or in a no-show goes into this incomplete list. And anybody that's in that incomplete list, you can call. It's a screen just like this. It has their phone number. It has everything. And you can call them to get them back in. If you want to do it on the fly, like Ryan just indicated, from the schedule book, we can right-click and reschedule the patient. And here's the reason I like to do it from the schedule book versus the home screen. It sets this patient in what I call the bucket. And you can see my little trash can or bucket over here. And it will keep that patient in that bucket forever, for the statute of limitations, for 7 years. So every day, and you can see, here's my calendar up here. If I go to tomorrow's schedule, there's the 8th. Or if I click in the box, I've got a 6-month calendar, which is helpful for future mammograms or ultrasounds or whatever. I can go to July the 20th. This guy stays in the bucket all day long until we take the time to call him.
Is the bucket global, or is it per user, or is it where's?
It's for everyone. Everybody sees everybody in the bucket all the time.
So if I log in right now, I see that patient in this bucket.
That's right.
Do I have to do something to turn on viewing the bucket, or is it, if somebody's in it, it's automatically there?
It's automatically there for everybody that can see the schedule book. So now he's called back and he says, oh, I can come back in today, but I need to come in at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to single left click, and I could do this on any calendar date for the year, next year. I'm going to left click and hold now that I have a 4-way arrow. may be a little challenging there we go, from my laptop. And putting back at 2:30. And if I go back to my home screen and I refresh, you can see it'll record that I actually rescheduled the patient from noon to 2:30. Now here's the key. The CT tech calls me and says, I don't have modality work list. And again, the whole trigger is right-click and hover on change of status and check the patient in. Now I'll go one step further because the patient just called and said that he can't come in at all. And I just right-clicked and hovered on cancel and clicked on it. It says it's going to cancel everything that's scheduled for this patient. This is customizable. We can build this with any words or any language you want. The key is if the patient's sick and says, I don't know when I'm going to be better, I'll call you when I'm going to come and get scheduled. So that person I don't put in the bucket, I just cancel them. If I click others, you have to type some note of some sort. So let's say Mr. Bunny is sick, or Mr. Test. I'm going to cancel his appointment. And again, I did that just so you could see it works the same as my no-shows. If I right-click and go to incomplete, which most of my sites do this a couple times a week, like on a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, somebody is assigned to run the incomplete list, basically for marketing to come in and say, all right, let's call Mr. Test. He was canceled, he was sick, and we don't want to lose him to the hospital, so we'll call him and see if we can get him back on the schedule book. And from there, we could reschedule. I guess my question to you is, would this be a complete cancellation with the referring physician needing to reorder through the EMR?
It's not about the actual.
Because if that's the case, you want to be real careful about teaching your staff this.
It's not going to push back to the EMR and cancel in the EMR, if that's what you're asking.
No, I know that. That's what I'm saying. In order to get them back in your schedule, would they need another order from the referring physician rather than reschedule from our RIS?
I wouldn't think so.
In other words, I don't want to create confusion and have people being able to reschedule here when it needs to go back through the EMR. And again, I think a lot of those questions have to be asked of what is the workflow.
If you reschedule from this incomplete list, does it keep the accession number?
Well, here's our session number 6. I'm going to reschedule. It's going to ask me what day, and I'm going to tell it I want the 7. And I'll take the 3 o'clock. And you can see that it did, even in my software, it immediately changed the accession number. So I'm thinking, yes, that it would. I mean, we'd have to ask development if we wanted it to hold the accession number, which you know that we're going to always get the accession number from Centricity. It'll be a feed to us. So we never want to use one out of my RIS.
Right,
so
but if when you reschedule it and it changes it or something of that nature, we're going to have to test that. So when you reschedule and it keeps it, then I'd say, no, you don't need a new order unless it's beyond a year.
Right. And if my RIS is always going to change it, we may get instructions from the HL7 team that we have to reschedule through the EMR. And I'm not saying that. I just have seen that before where I've been told, do not reschedule in your RIS because it'll change the accession number. Always reschedule at the EMR. And I don't know that that's going to happen because I've seen my development team come in and say, when we reschedule, do not change the accession number. And that would have held number 6 instead of changing to 7. I've seen it both ways, and I guess I have to apologize. I just I don't know the workflow, and I've not talked to the HL7 teams to see kind of what is the plan.
Is that only canceled because is that only changed because it was canceled, or if you went and did a no-show reschedule would do the same thing? Just a regular reschedule and, drag and drop.
If you keep the same modality and you keep the same CPT code, it will hold the accession number. If you cancel and reschedule, if you cancel and reschedule, it assigns a new one. That's standard in our RIS. If you change modalities or change CPT code, it obviously assigns a new accession number as well. Now, because I don't know how much you want to play with this, because I know there's a lot of questions to be asked, I just want to show you that under schedule and under pre-orders, new pre-order, I just did a search for Mr. Bunny, and I think you could create any patients that you wanted. And when I did that and I found Mr. Bunny, then I can come in and I can edit the demographics. What happened? My screen disappeared.
You're on incomplete.
I don't know what happened. I'm just showing you how to put another pre-order in. Obviously, these are all going to come from the feed from Centricity. But to fake around it, basically you could go and search. You can put an appointment type in. Actually, I'll click here and see if I can put a doctor in. I got to click the pencil, sorry. I just wanted to show you that you can build the new doctor on the fly, but I would assume, Ryan, that we're all going to get the same list of referring physicians so everything matches. Is that correct?
Get the same list?
I would think the EMR and the RIS and the PACS all have to match.
Right.
So, yeah, John uploaded that list that I provided to him, which is an export out of our other system.
All right. So if I want to come in here and try to change the doctor, you can see it's kind of like Google search. It'll follow you. Click in the appointment type box. Oops. There's no bone densities that have anything in them. In CR, if I click in the box, you can see the ones that have duration times, and I think it's only the ankle. They didn't really want me to build too much because I think they're going to change the database. So you can pick that left or right ankle. We have to tab. I did report that, and they're looking at that because you see how I'm tabbing? Ryan did that for us the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I want to type these notes in here. So again, when I type notes in my system, that's me doing it manually. I have no idea if they type notes in at the EMR, if HL7's working it out for those to come across. I just wanted to show you that in case right now when you do scheduling or they do scheduling for you, if they type notes for your techs or your doctors, we may want to make sure that HL7 is coordinating those note fields. You know what I mean, Ryan?
I haven't on that yet.
Okay. So now you can see in my pre-order screen, and I'll go back home, Bugs Bunny not in here. That's not the same Bugs Bunny, by the way. Under my pre-orders, I've got another Bugs Bunny setting there. And he's got a study description already because I put it in there in order to get him in my pre-order list. Normally, I don't know if that's going to be there, Ryan. Do you know if they're going to send the study description or not?
Yes. Yes.
They are? Okay, great. Then all we have to do is right-click. Call the patient. Click Schedule. Look at our time frames, and keep in mind, I'm going to work with development to make sure we get these CPT codes and stuff to default properly so you have the right time slots at every facility. Put the dot in, select.
If there was more than one available place to schedule them, for example, we have a couple locations with multiple ultrasounds.
Yeah.
Are they just all going to show up in a list? I mean, is it going to... There's not going to be a way to say I want to... Yeah.
What? For each location, you mean?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and put it in as an ultrasound, because they're probably built out.
What's that?
Put it in as an ultrasound, because the rooms are already built out.
I can try, but I don't know if I got any duration times in there. I can show you how to go add those. See, I don't have any duration times. Let me scroll through. They'll all come up and give me a bad code. I can show you how to go and add some of those if you want to play with the system. So I know I've got a CT in here at 30 minutes.
Okay. So with no duration, you can't override the duration or anything?
You can't pick the CPT code. It'll come up and give you an error and say pick a CPT code with a duration time.
Okay.
And John just doesn't have those loaded.
We don't have them to him yet.
No. I don't think the compendium's done. All right, so now that you have the patient back in there, when they do the patch to build this, because of multiple locations, Ryan, on a right click right here will be something that says offices or location. I can't remember what it says. And when you hover, the 4 offices will be right there. And if you pick one, then you'll see the duration times for that, but you can't see 2 offices at the same time.
Okay. That's not the question, though.
What was the question?
We have 2 offices that each have 2 ultrasound machines.
All right.
Technically, one of them is an echo, but we do ultrasounds in those rooms.
Okay.
We don't have an echo tech there.
All right.
So.
And what do you want to make sure that when we register the patients, that modality work list goes to both?
That would be important. However, I was more wondering about actually scheduling them in a room that's got. So if you go back to the pre-order and go to schedule that, this is automatically pulling because we're in Fort Myers, automatically pulling Fort Myers, and it's automatically pulling the CT room in Fort Myers. What if there was more than one room? They're just going to be mixed in there with it?
Yeah, so at one of our other sites, we have like ultrasound 1 and ultrasound 2, and it'll give you the time slots of both rooms. And you can name them whatever you want. John named these, and John can go in and name it Echo and ultrasound or US or whatever you want, but when you pull it up, he can make it so that it shows both rooms and all the duration times or all the available slots for each room. You just have to let him know that, Brian, when he gets
like, okay, so for example, an echo can only be scheduled in an echo room.
What's that?
An echo can only be scheduled in the echo room.
Okay. Well, he can build it so that it'll come up for just the echo. He can rename those modalities. So when you right-click and schedule, based on the pre-order, then it should be able to pull up the correct room. So what he does is he ties those CPT codes, like the Echo CPT codes, he ties those to that modality room. So that when we see that CPT code, when you right-click and schedule, it knows to drive you to that room, and it'll be named appropriately right here.
It's not based on the modality type, it's based on CPT.
That's right. But that's something they're going to have to customize. We've done it at a couple of other sites, but I talked to John about it last night and again this morning. So he knows that we're going to have the RIS developers do some customizing for us.
Okay.
But if you want to put 30 patients in here, you can go and do new pre-orders and put them in if you do want to play with it, and right-click and schedule. And if do you want to add some more duration time so you have other CPT codes to play with?
Not at the moment, but yeah, I know kind of roughly how to do that. So.
Yeah, it's a three-step process on our CPT codes. One, there's a code list, and this is 14,000 records that we upload from the AMA. So every code should be in there. The next one is the CPT code fee. And within the fee, you can see I've only built a few. But if you'd go search for codes up here, there's my CT with contrast material. And duration time, 15 minutes or whatever. Kind of do those as a formality, and then you can click add. And you can see now that we could actually go and pick the CT abdomen with contrast. And you can do that for ultrasounds or whatever you want to do. Now, I wouldn't get too busy because I think once the compendium's done and stuff, we want as much of this stuff electronically uploaded as possible. It's very time-consuming to build it. And when your schedulers put these people in, do they name these something more specific than your C+, your C-? They probably don't talk in that language, do they?
No. It's what you saw in the study description.
Okay. And that'll all get uploaded when it's,
I think when now, or a lot of
when it's uploaded and stuff, those will all be added. I really don't know what else to show you because I'm not sure exactly what the HL7 feeds are going to look like. I don't know if you're going to run reports based on, let's say, Dr. Smith and the number of ankles that he ordered in July, if you're going to do that out of the EMR, if you have to do that at all. But that will be calculated in this RIS. And normally in my admin training when I'm on site, then we take an hour or so with whatever people need to know how to run reports and go through and run those. But they are in this RIS.
will need to have a report specifically about radiologist productivity, what they're reading, very specific radiology reports.
We can run those. We can run those both out of PACS and out of RIS. I'm sure the EMR will be able to track it as well, but when I do my admin training, I can certainly go over that with whoever needs to know how to run those reports. Sometimes they're a little friendlier out of PACS, actually, than RIS.
Maybe Ryan can give you some parameters of a specific report we'll definitely need to be sure we have access to.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can get you that in an email, that like one that we had to build out just recently. I've got a question. Are you able? Well, I guess it's not. Never mind. It's not going to be on your end. So that's more PACS related. So we'll ask that later.
Mark, for your information, we are just beginning our conversation. I believe it's this Thursday with the EMR orders, from EMR to the pre-orders.
Okay.
So
Ryan, I will be doing if they send me to your site, I will be doing your PACS training as well as your RIS. Is there something you wanted to go over now?
Well, something that's being asked right now on our current system, and the answer is no, is whether or not we have the ability to schedule or to kind of assign studies or view studies based on insurances.
Based on what?
For assignment to doctors when they're getting credentialed to radiologists, some of the radiologists can only read certain insurances until they're fully credentialed.
Certain insurances.
Right.
And so we want to try to build some type of filter in the PACS so that they don't see those and make an inadvertent read.
Correct. Because we won't get paid if they read them.
And it's all based on insurances, not by necessarily a physician or a certain CPT code?
It wouldn't be CPT code. It would be reading physician. So the physician actually reading the study, only having credentialed on certain insurances.
Whoa. Let me think about that. We don't normally push the insurance information over to the PAC. If we did that routinely, I could easily build a filter.
Sure.
To exclude those insurances, but that's a tough one, man. Let me think about that.
Hey, Mark,
we got a little bit of time. What's that?
Do you have any kind of, I looked on the website and stuff, but do you personally, since you do a lot of the training and things like that, do you have anything written at all or any kind of step-by-step that we could kind of use as a guideline? I had looked for a manual and I had asked John for a manual and he said he didn't think you guys had one.
Well, I have not been on here for a while. Let's see. I'm going to go to my website. We did have some download or electronic manuals in here at one time.
That's what Becky enjoys all of her off time.
What's that?
This is what Becky enjoys doing in her off time. It's reading manuals.
Yeah, they put me to sleep every night.
Ooh, nobody wants to take your job. I don't want to do that. These might just be brochures.
Yeah, I looked
But
out here. I didn't see anything that really would, help me to figure out, because sometimes we can take the manuals and, then turn around and kind of compare them to what we have and, kind of like the brainstorming that we've been doing between the last session and this session, which brings up good points. But I think part of our worry is that, even in just speaking with you the last couple of times, now there's all these things that are like, oh, well, we need to figure that out, or we need to, build this. And since we're still on the very beginning part of this, of being able to customize or build depending on what we need, I'm just afraid that there's stuff that we do not know that then we're going to get too far along in the project that it's going to be not able to either to do it, or we're going to have to create some workaround that creates additional steps for our employees that maybe they don't need to do.
Right. Well, you can see my challenge without talking to the HL7 or really anybody else that's given much information is I began to teach you just how to schedule that, like my RIS was in total control. And as you can see, that's total different training than what I came into today.
Right.
So I'm still struggling. There are some screenshots there that aren't going to be very helpful to you. I don't know if there's a manual. I want to tell you this, Becky. There's over 2,000 features in this RIS because we have meaningful use. We have EMR. I mean, it's a full electronic program. You guys don't need it that way because you have centricity. So there's a lot of features in here. Let me get a hold of one of the girls at the office that's done some manual writing over the last couple of months and see if she's got something done on the RIS side.
Okay, because that's what I do for us. I write all of our workflows and manuals that our employees use, and so even after you leave, they're still going to need some kind of support. So, and even just trying to prepare for some of our workflows, talk about them, and then turn around and do instructions and screenshots so that we can put them online for our employees. I just, just trying to kind of figure out if there was any kind of reference material to kind of go back to.
I mean, there's been a couple girls that have been working on manuals, plus they had been talking about some laminated sheets, like how to work out of the home screen, how to go to the schedule book and put stuff in the bucket, because that's easy to forget if you don't do that for a couple of weeks. Let me call Rach and Mel and see if what they've gotten done over the last couple months. I know that they haven't been traveling because they were working on these manuals.
Uh-huh.
And maybe they've got something that I don't know where it's at, or maybe they've got some laminated sheets or something that I can get to you.
Okay.
What else? As soon as we hang up, I know questions are going to come, and it's tough for us to really simulate a good, true workflow because we just haven't got any information about the HL7 drive, and that's going to control a lot of what we do.
The other question
Here's what I'd like. Yep, go ahead.
That I have is that if we are going to eliminate the arrived, can we get rid of and can we, hide these, that there's not so many? Because if we're going to get rid of this option that they're going to be arrived, would that then turn around and get rid of it here on the sidebar so that employees don't accidentally arrive them and then those patients get forgotten about?
I knew that was coming. When I right-click and I hover on these change of statuses, as of right now in our software, those are hard-coded. There's no way to remove them. Okay. So if you don't use like document assign, I can't actually remove that from the list. And I don't know that I can remove it from this left side either, but that's not to say that I can't make a request to development to do it, and I'll be happy to do that. On the right-click menu, I've always been told no.
Right. And what does patient requests mean? What does patient requests down a couple?
Here?
Yeah.
That's where they've opened up your patient portal. Inside this RIS is the ability for the patients to come in and request their own exam and their own time slot and their own day and their own doctor. It's called a patient portal. And I don't think that it's going into play on your side. I don't think they're going to use it. I could be wrong, but I've not heard the patient portal mentioned probably because of GE centricity.
Well, and we have our own portal. We try to
You have
get
your own patient portal where they already go into your EMR?
Yeah, those questions, they automatically flow into our EMR request, or if they need refills or whatever, they go to our portal and that flows into EMR.
All right, that's the same thing. And again, when I ask if we can remove certain statuses from this left side that we're not going to use, I'll ask if they can remove patient request. I don't know if they will, but for all I know, they have a way of doing it already. But I've never gotten very good answers here. They tell me that these are hard-coded and they can't remove them.
Okay. And then the waiting time, what is that, and how does it, I guess, decide what the waiting time is?
Well, waiting time is if you're in a time management program like hospitals are, and we can go in and pre-program the time they are scheduled to the time that you arrive them, to the time that you give them a document like the HIPAA sign. And at a hospital, there's not supposed to be more than 3 or 4 minutes in between any of those. I don't think that you guys are in a time program, especially since we decided to skip arrived. I don't think waiting time is going to come into play.
Okay.
You don't want anybody timing you, do you, on how long it takes to say hello to the patient compared to the time it took to get him to CT?
No. I don't think so.
That's kind of what that's for. And I don't think it'll come into play.
I've asked this question once, so I thought, let me ask, again. So on this pre-order screen, because all of our orders are going to be flowing over from EMR, so there's some studies that we cannot do because we just don't have the modalities to do them. You do not have a way to fax any kind of order or anything out of your system, correct?
Fax an order?
Yes.
The
So
order.
say that
Print would be, you wouldn't have to fax it because we could, on the back end, handle that piece if you could print them.
As far as, you mean, like we've gotten a doctor's order, we've got a prescription, and we've scanned it in, and you want to be able to print it?
It would come over from the EMR because we were going to have all orders come into here under the pre-orders so that our schedulers only have one list to work off of. But there's orders that we just cannot do. So if this first order was something that we could not do, just kind of thinking about the workflow, I wanted to see, was there a way to be able to, I guess, either print or, if you can print it or if you can fax it, or is the only option to cancel and then our employees would go back to the EMR?
No, you can. So what I'm hearing is that, and we've done this many places, when the documents get scanned at the EMR, they're going to be pushed over to our RIS.
No.
So,
We're not working with scanned documents right now. We're working with orders. So a doctor orders a PET scan. We don't own a PET scanning machine. But the doctor orders it. Our radiology department needs to handle it because they're the ones that handle all radiology orders. So it gets put into pre-orders.
All right.
So now you got a pre-order for a PET scan. Our preferred workflow would actually be to handle that pre-order in this system to be able to actually say, okay, well, you call the patient, all right, you need to get this PET scan done. Where would you like to get it done? Okay, well, let me get you, we'll send over your order to the hospital to get that done. And, they kind of complete that process, and a way to actually print out an order, a pre-order from here as an order, I guess, to be able to fax over to the hospital showing that the doctors ordered it. That makes sense?
You want to be able to print some from here to send back to the office stating that.
No, actually send to the hospital where it's going to be performed. So we want to send them over to Lee Memorial Hospital to get their PET scan done, because we don't do PET scans. But it's a pre-order in here because all orders are coming in here regardless of whether or not we can do them.
Right.
Because orders are going to come in here that we can do, let's say an x-ray, and the patient says, no, I want to go to my preferred radiology clinic, and we have to let them do that. Because all orders are coming here. All radiology orders are coming into this system, whether or not they have to.
What is your goal then, to be able to move this electronically to them or be able to send the order to them, like this prescription?
Let's say what she's talking about is actually be able to fax an order to an outside facility from here.
All right.
And the order would simply just be the information in the pre-order.
Okay.
And faxing can be as simple as being able to print it out, and if you can print something, you can print to a fax destination. We've got two different pieces of software you can take a print to fax.
So keep in mind that this pre-order is basically just an electronic transmission, right? So I don't know that I have any way of actually sending this direct order, because it's just electronic transmission from your EMR. Now, if along with the electronic transmission, they also send the actual script or order out of View Documents, and it's set right here and said prescription or physician order or whatever, that can always be printed, or it can be moved to a PDF and then emailed or faxed or whatever you want to do. But it would have to be some type of a document that was either scanned at the EMR or put in electronically somehow, because this is just an electronic feed, and I don't think, Ryan, that I have any means of extracting that out of my software.
That's fine. So they're going to document it in the EMR anyway, so we can just stay with the fact that they faxed it out of the EMR. So that's not a gigantic deal. My other question, and we had kind of talked to John a little bit about it, so I just want to make sure, if they were going to cancel that pre-order, is there a way to get a drop-down, or the only way they're going to be able to do it is just to type why they canceled that order?
And we had already talked to John. John's already working on getting that drop-down in for us.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we still are all on the same page then with it.
I'm going to jump to the home screen real quick. I'm glad you mentioned that, though, because from here, on a right click, and I know we've already looked at this, is cancel. And in this cancel list is something that's basically been pre-built by myself and some other people that I've trained in our RIS. These are just kind of normal things I see. These can be deleted and rebuilt. And again, if you pick others, you have to type something. But it was my understanding that John was going to try to move this list from the home screen so that when we went to pre-orders and we right-clicked,
We would have that same drop-down list.
exactly, that it would look identical to what was on the home screen. That was what I thought they were going to try to accomplish. And
okay, and that's
I'm glad
I'm trying to make sure we're all staying on the same page, because I think that is where we were, that yes, from here, because the patient would never be scheduled. It would be canceled from this pre-order list, because either number one, the patient does not want to come here, or number two, we just simply cannot do the exam. But we would still want to document as to why we're canceling those off the pre-order list, and then that would jump to my next question. Canceling off a pre-order list, can you still report on that? So if the manager wanted to know how many pre-orders were canceled and why they were canceled, could they report off that?
you see where I'm going? I'm just going to see if it drove it into my incomplete, and it did not. So my thoughts are, no, that if you cancel pre-order, that it's not the same as canceling from my home screen. Because I want to show you what happens. So you can see that I canceled that patient because he was sick, but I did not see that patient that I canceled out of pre-order come into this list. So I don't know that you can run a report out of cancel out of pre-order.
Okay, because I wanted to compare to make sure that the orders in EMR were taken care of. They could run a listing out of here and compare it to possibly the EMR.
So don't we think it would be best if maybe even if we cancel pre-order patients, if they go into the incomplete list as well? Would that solve that?
I don't know that that would be ideal because
of
canceled pre-orders.
Yeah, because I would think the incomplete list would truly be the ones that we're attempting to capture back on our schedules. I wouldn't want schedulers or a manager. I mean, certainly, again, that can be discussed in-house, but I would imagine that a manager wouldn't want their employees doing double work to get rid of an order because they're already having to go in EMR and send that order out now to where it needs to be and update that full order with the details. So I would think that that would be almost too much work for them if they had to turn around and clean it off of an incomplete list. Plus, it might be confusing if she turns around and assigns somebody to work canceled orders. They might think that they need to call those patients, and then our patients are upset because they've already told us that they wanted to go outside.
So
I would also have
if we cancel out of pre-orders, then are you wanting some other type of report to be able to run?
I don't know. I just wanted to ask, because, again, it's just one of those things that then makes us turn around and think about it,
Sure.
So then that's the only reason I was asking, just to see, because, again, we don't know anything about the system. We don't know what the options are. That's why I kind of asked and reached out and said, hey, can we have some kind of real demo? Because the demo that was done before, we didn't dive into these things. So, for us
Right.
to kind of think on our end and have conversations on our end, we're just really trying to kind of get a good idea of what the system is capable of so that we make best decisions.
Okay. Well, let's leave the incomplete list in those that we actually are trying to recapture as a true incomplete list.
So if they're going to have to schedule out of the EMR anyways for exams that we don't do, potentially, why would we build those in Viztek, in like fluoros or PET scans or?
Because then your schedulers are working out of, because the idea was that they would all go into Viztek, because then if you are on like patient A, you would see every exam for patient A, and you would say, okay, patient A, I can do your x-ray and your CT, but your fluoro, I'm going to schedule outside. But you know that they're due for all three exams. If we don't build them out of Viztek, then the only option is to leave those as flags in the EMR. Then you potentially are trying to reach that patient twice, or you're turning around and saying, okay, I scheduled you for these and possibly missing that third exam altogether. So we were trying to, in the original kind of going back, and again, I mean, it's all open for discussion, but the reason that we had said everything was going to go into Viztek is because truly then it gave them one list to work off of.
It does give them one list to work off of, but they're going there for no reason because you can't do anything with them, I guess.
No, in the pre-order they would just simply cancel it here, and then while they have the patient on the phone or in front of them, they would turn around and they would fax it right out of the EMR to wherever the patient wanted to go.
So I guess there's a couple things. The modalities that we don't do that we're building, we'll have to make sure is not available to the outside when they're using that portal.
Right.
we don't want to make it like a service that we have available that we don't.
Right? Yeah,
So
that
there's
makes sense.
maybe we can to get Mark thinking on how we best should set that up. Also, some discussion needs to be had, and maybe Mark might be better suited, is about how we are going to migrate from our current system and our current orders and how we're going to handle all of that.
As far as migration, you mean?
Not so much the packs, because I think Ryan's done a lot of the images. But, yeah, like our current orders that are already flowing into our RIS, it's a real time, it schedules the patient, so like how we're going to make a stop and how we're going to get those orders that might be in the future, per se, over to your system.
Yeah, they have to do that through, John will do all the migration, but then he'll set up the HL7 team to make sure that the proper demographics are coming. So if, the referring physician is missing, they go in and correct that. But, yeah, John does all the migration side.
Well, the demographics, again, I'm not worried so much about. It's about the orders, because right now a physician puts the order in the EMR, and it goes to our system, and it goes over there as scheduled. But it could be scheduled for the future or wherever.
Right.
Or it's sitting actually in a third party waiting to be scheduled, so they'll push it over once they do schedule it.
Okay. So that's not even really John, that's HL7. We have two ladies that work out of our office, Madhu and Natasha.
Yeah, we're working.
And they do they do our HL7 side. Because they don't give me much information on that stuff.
Well, but as a company, have you not dealt with other companies that are currently using one system and are migrating over to the other, and best plans of action or a process?
Well, we do that virtually at every site. Unfortunately, as the apps person, I don't really get involved until it comes time to either do the WebEx or the training. I don't really get involved in the moving of the data side, I guess, if you will. Once I know that the machines are sending, then I go in and make sure all the DICOM tags are coming properly for the radiologist. But normally I don't get involved until it's on the modality side.
Okay.
So where do we want to leave this? I've written several notes. I need to ask John about the cancel list and matching that to the pre-order. I'll ask Rach about a RIS manual and if they've got something written or some laminated sheets that'll help you out.
I think that at least gives us some jumping off points, for some internal discussion to kind of continue moving forward where we think, or what we want to do or what we hope that the application will be able to do for us. So I think it gave us a good idea. And like I said, I know even myself, I wrote quite a few points for us to discuss in-house. And then certainly, as we continue to build it out more, if we need to, maybe in the future do kind of a thing like this again.
Okay. As you can see, I didn't show the available slots or walk-in program. And I know you have walk-ins, but I really think, and I need to talk to the HL7 or at least to John so I understand the process. I really think everything's going to have to go through the EMR and feed to us based on a session number. So I don't see us ever really doing a straight walk-in in this software.
We don't have those. We do have walk-ins that will not touch our EMR and will not need to go back to the EMR.
Well, we can cover that at another if you want. I mean, those are easy. Those are 6. You can put somebody in a schedule book and So that's very friendly. So I can cover that at any time. What I'd like to do, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions come up, and I am working from my house the rest of this week, is for you all to have my cell number if you don't already, and I would be happy to take your calls at any time. Now, next week it looks like I'm at the orthopedic site, and so I may be training all week, but I'd be happy to take your calls. And we can go over this anytime. If we have to do another 10-minute quick look-see again, then I'd be happy to team viewer in and help anybody out. Is that all right?
Okay.
That's great.
Okay, so 904-229-5186. And it's Mark Collins, Collins. Because I know as soon as I see things, and I usually have 3 or 4 questions myself, and so feel free to call me if I can help you answer some things. And if we have to, let's jump back in and team viewer in and look at it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time. We really greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I apologize for the confusion, but I think a lot of it's just, HL7 feeds and some things that we just don't have the answers to right now. And we can get some of those. It'll help us narrow down our training process.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm sure we were kind of jumping the gun a little bit. We were just trying to figure out and try to connect some of the dots on our side, as well as we're continuing through this process.
Okay, if you want to use more CPT codes and you forget about how to do duration times, whatever, just call me and let me help you out.
Okay.
All right, I appreciate your time. I know everybody's busy. I didn't want to take up the whole morning, but I appreciate your time, and hopefully it helped us at least get started.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.